Same as the mouth, you know, about neutral, about slightly acidic, whatever you want to put there. Your esophagus is basically a part of your mouth going down your throat, basically. It's the same, generally, if you don't do anything. Just so your stomach doesn't be in your chin. Stomach! Does your stomach physically digest food?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Next time your stomach is growling and churning, you know, that's a semantics or concept. Right? If your bird had a rock in your stomach, it'd make even more sense. That's the concept. Does your stomach chemically digest food?
Yes.
Yes, that's called vomit. Right? Well, not yet. You can vomit bile, but not hopefully. Does it absorb nutrients?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes. There are two answers here. The answer you want to put is no. Okay. In terms of food, that's why when you vomit, you can see what you ate for dinner. It's still there, right? However, if you read the literature, your stomach can absorb some things. So if you put yes on a test, you have to clarify what you mean by nutrient. The stomach can absorb alcohol, it can absorb aspirin, certain antibiotics. That's kind of it. AAA,
And water.
and a little bit of water with the alcohol. So a little bit of water. If you're college students and all you do is drink, well, maybe that's the only nutrient you know. But most people don't absorb food in their stomach. Glucose usually does not go through the stomach lining very well. Slightly, but not enough to notice. So the main thing you want to say with your stomach is it really doesn't digest your meal. It absorbs it. You digest it, it doesn't absorb it. Right? Worthless trivia, if you drink alcohol on an empty stomach, the alcohol goes to the lining faster, that's why it hits you harder. Okay, but for this class, we're going to say no to the stomach in terms of absorption. You can already eat me later. That's swallow water with cheese, it's still there when you vomit it out. What's the pH of your stomach from 112? Okay, about a 2, which is highly, highly, highly acidic. Right? Very, very acidic. Again, throw up and watch your carpet melt. So in stomach, we have a yes, yes, no, mostly, and about a 2.
I'm sorry, the little squiggle next to the 7, is that missing?
Approximately.
Approximately.
Yes, that's all that. So, small intestines. Does it digest food physically?
Maybe.
The answer is yes, it does! All right, let me prove to you the yes. So just so you know, I'm not making this up. So remember, this was the esophagus. The esophagus shoves food. The intestine does this. So remember when you were a kid, my mom did this, you took 2 glasses of water and you mixed it back and forth and thought you were hey, there you go, my tongue. Right.
Yeah.
But what your small intestine is doing is taking this lump of food and this lump of food, cutting them in half, shoving them together. So if you think about it, this food is now getting cut in half or digested. This one's getting digested and mixed together. So I'm cutting and breaking the food apart. Therefore, this is a digestive event, physically. That's word segmentation. But you're taking the food and splitting it into pieces back and forth. So that's considered a yes. All right? So the esophagus is doing just shoving, same on both ends. Whereas the small intestine is kind of breaking it up and shoving it back and forth, which is digestion. So the answer is a yes for your small intestine. So that's a subtle distinction, but it's a distinction. So small intestine has a yes for physical digestion. Does it have a yes for chemical digestion?
Yes.
Yes, it does. In fact, you're going to star that one. That is so stinking important. We're going to star that one. We'll come back to it. Does your small intestine absorb nutrients?
Yes.
Yes! We're going to double star that one. That's really, really, really important.
That's triple star.
That's a triple fine. I'll have 4 more. Lots of stars. Okay. So here's the question. We're going to stop there and ask us, why is the small intestine absorbing than the other organs? What makes it the absorber?
The tissue? That's it?
Why would my small intestine be the only one that can absorb?
Because it's simple.
Nope.
Squamous tissue.
Very good. Let's look at a picture of a small intestine. Where did I put it? Ah! Here's a small intestine. So here's my small intestine, long tube. What do you notice on the lining of my small intestine? What do you see there? See little fingers, villi, right? So if I look at a villus, one of them up close and personal, what do you see inside the villus? What's that blue stuff from last term? That's blood.
The capillary.
Capillary. Now if I look at the edge of my finger, you will notice my finger has cells that have little baby fingers. So I have fuzzy fingers on top of these fingers on top of these folds. And what's the goal of all that fingering stuff? Surface area. What tissue from 231 second week of class are in the lining of your small intestine? Simple, what was this? Simple columnar. I can change it to 231 grades again. So what was so special about a simple layer? What does it allow you to do?
Absorption.
Diffusion. Remember, simple squamous in your lungs. This is simple columnar. It allows you to get stuff in and out of the thin membrane. There's lots of it, and the blood's in the middle. So again, we have a lot of surface area with a very thin membrane, so stuff can get in and get out. Okay, so we back this up. My small intestine has a whole lot of surface with a thin covering, so stuff can be absorbed easily. If I were looking at an esophagus, because I just wanted to, what do you think an esophagus would look like if I stared at it? You know this from 231 as well. What's the top of your esophagus? Push it down, and also remember the Dorito effect?
Protection.
So what's the layer of your esophagus? What tissue is it? That's fine. Here's your esophagus. Multiple layers of flat cells. Why? Because you're going to scrape it to death. So you can't absorb through multiple layers. Your esophagus can absorb because it's protecting you. Your small intestine is very thin, it's absorbing you. So you're going to go back to your histology and realize that organs look different as you go down to a different job. Your esophagus will never absorb anything because it can't physically get from out here, lumen, to where you are. Okay. Doritos. Makes sense? So a small intestine has a, you remember Dorito effect?
I do specifically remember Dorito effect.
So back to our question, small intestine is built to absorb. It has lots of surface area, lots of thin membranes. So that enables it to absorb food much better than any other organ. Plus it's really long. Right? It's what, 13 feet? Pretty big. No, they don't go that far. But Crohn's disease, you lose your villi. So what happens is the immune system attacks to villi, they scar over, they get thicker, thicker doesn't absorb. So that's Crohn's disease. So if you read the little thing here, increased surface area for digestion. Small intestine absorbs. Makes sense? Let's keep going to our magic chart though. So we have a yes, yes, yes on small intestine. What's the pH of your small intestine?
Basic.
It's basic. It turns out it's about an 8. Remember, that's a base because it's more than 7. We'll talk about a little bit why that is. Hey, large intestine, does it physically digest? No, it pushes poop. Does it chemically digest? No, it pushes poop. Does it absorb nutrients?
Now it.
Yes, it does. Now you're going to tell me, well, what nutrient would that be, Mr. Christie?
Vitamins.
Water and vitamins. Water is a nutrient because without it you die. Vitamins are nutrients, without them you die. So therefore those are nutrients. Small intestine also, by the way, does water, but then large intestine does water and vitamins exclusively.
But isn't the bacteria in your large intestine a nutrient
Yes.
for digestion?
Yes, which we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah, they're the ones that make this.
Oh,
Yeah. So large intestine is a no, no, yes. What's the pH of your large intestine? Also basic. Next on your board, take a litmus paper to your poo. Come out about an 8. I'm sure you're all really want to do that. Okay, let me show you a static picture of this. Poop. Not poop, no. Oh, I guess you could.
Where did the arrow come from for the H2O then?
That was for the nutrients from the large intestine.
Okay, thank you.
This is not a modern biology book, but it actually shows a lot of neat things. So this is breaking it down So you're eating food. Mechanical, a synonym for that would be physical. You're carrying food. So my mouth, my stomach by grinding up a cement mixer, and my small intestine by breaking it into little pieces. Those are the only three that have yeses. Propulsion is just shoving it. Well, a lot of organs can shove, and that's not what we're doing in the chart. The chart is physical digestion, chemical, so the chemicals point to my stomach, my small intestine. It doesn't point to the large intestine. It's already digested by the time I get there, so there's nothing to chemically melt anymore. And absorption is into my blood vessels or lymph, which we'll talk about. Small intestine absorbs, and some nutrients come out of the large intestine. So in a nutshell, it's showing your chart. Here's the yes and no's.
So it's getting brown.
Yes.
I just wanted to
Okay. So from last term, remember that you break down the cells that becomes bilirubin. Bilirubin goes into the small intestine, right about here. Out there. And that the bacteria in your intestine get converted to sterobilin and this other chemical which become more brown. So the brown begins here and browner as you go this way. And that's what we call the base code, the bacteria colors.
Right.
The other colors are due to the plant material in your poop. Which you can't eat, right? So the more plant you let you eat, therefore the darker it gets.
And then
It can turn to a green color if you all eat plants.
where is gas?
Gas is formed in the beginning of the large intestine, and then you get more gas as you go on through. Right. Basically, bacteria are burping, and then you're just letting it all out at the end.
What's the green squiggly line here?
What is that green squiggly line?
Here.
That's just supposed to be food, I think. Just traveling around. I mean, I didn't draw this, right? Let me show you the animation of this process before we do the enzyme now. Yes.
The primary functions of the digestive system are the breakdown of food, called digestion, and absorption of nutrients. Digestion begins in the mouth, where the teeth break food into smaller particles during mastication.
So physical.
Salivary glands, located near the oral cavity, secrete saliva, which begins chemical digestion and keeps the food moist.
Yes, yes.
As food is swallowed, the soft palate blocks the upper pharynx to prevent food from entering the nasal cavity, and multiple voluntary muscles in the face, neck, and tongue contract, pushing food particles through the pharynx. The food passes over the epiglottis, which prevents...
Remember that from last? Right? So as the flap goes down, keep it in the back tube, and you're going to go down into the esophagus and the down. So the pharynx is shared by everybody. And now you're going to sort, food goes to the back, air goes to the front. Pharynx, go there.
Food entry into the respiratory system, and then into the esophagus, which connects the pharynx to the stomach. The one-way movement of the food mass, now called a bolus, is controlled by wave-like involuntary muscle contractions. This movement is known as peristalsis.
Again, that's not digestion. I'm just shoving a piece of food, so that doesn't change anything. The worm.
The bolus now enters the stomach. Holes in the stomach wall, called rugae, allow for expansion as the stomach fills. Stomach cells secrete hydrochloric acid, pepsinogen, and various regulatory hormones that chemically digest the bolus.
I'm melting the food.
Muscular contractions in the stomach churn its contents to further break down the bolus and mix it with stomach secretions to form a thick liquid called chyme.
That's the physical.
That's the throw up.
Yeah, so formally, well, yeah, this is doctor speak. A bolus means a pill. So if you're swallowing it down, it's still a pill. Once you melt it into what we call vomit, they call chyme because, well, why not? Right? Yeah, vomit just means your chyme came back.
Muscular contractions in the stomach churn its contents to further break down the bolus and mix it with stomach secretions to form a thick liquid called chyme. Chyme exits the stomach through the pyloric sphincter and enters the small intestine, the major site of nutrient absorption. The small intestine consists of 3 parts: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum.
Okay, so you can also say duodenum, I should freak you out.
You can say what?
Duodenum is legal. Because I'm just Latin there. Yeah. So, beginning, middle, and end, basically. And they're basically all the same organs. So nothing really changes in terms of what the small intestine is doing. It changes how it looks. Okay? So we get the lab, there actually is difference in how they look. But you're going to say it's all the small intestine. Okay. Look at that today. We haven't tasted any of that. Magic reflexes.
Bile from the liver and digestive enzymes from the pancreas empty into the duodenum to aid in digestion. Absorbed nutrients pass from the lumen of the small intestine into blood and lymph.
Remember, absorption is this job.
Chyme not absorbed in the small intestine enters the large intestine. As it passes through the cecum and ascending, transverse, descending, and sigmoid colon, water and salts are absorbed and chyme is converted into feces.
Okay, so one word on colon. Is that largest? Yes. You can say large intestine, you can say colon. They're the same thing. Just pick one that is your favorite. Okay, it doesn't matter. And then notice what's absorbed in my large intestine. I'm not digesting anything. I am absorbing water. Why would salt be absorbed there?
It's a vitamin.
Vitamin, and also by osmosis, salt and water attract each other, right? So you can absorb water, you can also absorb salt, because salt's dissolved in water. So water, vitamins, water, salts, electrolytes, they can all be absorbed in the large intestine because it's basically soluble in water. So it's the same kind of thing.
The rectum stores feces until nervous stimulation initiates the defecation reflex, resulting in elimination through the anal canal.
Of course, they don't show that. That's what I want to say. So there's the basic gist of your digestive system, those yeses and nos. Make sense? Now we have the most harder part of the chart, which is the enzymes we have to do. So we're going to do each organ individually, because I know they don't all fit in the box. Okay? So we're going to start with our mouth enzyme.
Can I do a question?
Sure.
In the small intestine, does it basically insects like chopping in?
Nope, just physically, it's like squeezing a toothpaste tube. As the small intestine squeezes in,
It chops it
you know, whatever's trapped is pushed in there. So if you take a toothpaste and do this, you're doing segmentation. Okay, someone name for me an enzyme found in the mouth. All right, salivary. All right, so I'm going to teach you the Biology 112 review of enzymes. And there's a pattern to this. So remind me again what ACE meant. Enzyme. Okay. So the rule of naming enzymes is the word in front of the enzyme here. This traditionally is the source of the enzyme. So the enzyme is amylase. Enzyme. So amylase is the enzyme. Where is it made? On my salivary gland. So the word's supposed to tell you the enzyme and where it's made. So if I do my mouth, it's going over here. The enzyme is amylase. Has the ACE ending, and the source is where? Salivary gland. So hence, I would recommend you learn it as a pair. Salivary amylase. Therefore, you'll always remember that this is made in there. All right? Logic of the name. There's one more piece of logic. The prefix before the ACE ending, amyl, is a substrate. So amyl is short for amylose. Amylose is known as starch. So the substrate of amylase is amylose, which is known as starch in everyone's board. So if you know how to speak enzyme, you get 3 things out of one word, basically. The enzyme name, what it breaks down, where it's made. Salivary amylase. So now I go back to 112. What is the product when I break down starch? Sugar. So starch is a polysaccharide. I'm going to make simple sugars out of it. So for this class, you can say simple sugar. You can say monosaccharide. You can say glucose, subunits. Just put sugar. How's that? So salivary amylase in this class today, we say maybe my salivary glands convert starch into sugar. That would be any answer in the test. You okay with that? You're not done yet. Because there's another enzyme in your mouth. What is it? Lingual lipase. All right, let's see if you can break this down. Lipase, enzyme name, substrate, source. What's the source of lingual lipase? Tongue. So lipase, maybe your tongue. So, because lingua means tongue. What is the substrate of lipase? Fat. That's what you did in labs. Lipids. All right. I'm going to take a lipid or a fat. Same. What are the products of breaking down a fat? Fatty acids. That's what we did in lab, right? So the product would be fatty acids. So if you don't have that polymer monomer sheet from 112, you may want to find it. Not so last year. Okay. So I'm going to take the lipase, the lipids into fatty acids. Those are the only two enzymes in the mouth. We have to know. Make sense? Okay. Stomach. Enzymes, yes. Name one.
Pepsin.
Pepsin, okay. Here is the problem with that name. There's no ace in it. It was named before they did the acing kind of stuff. It's still an enzyme. So the problem is it doesn't tell you where it's made. So where's it made? Gastric glands or gastric. So pepsin is made in my stomach cells. Or stomach is fine. Gastric cells is fine. Peptic ulcer, pepsin-AC, Pepto-Bismol, they're all meaning stomach. What does pepsin break down? Except for 112 that began with pep. Peptides. Peptides are called proteins. So it breaks down proteins. Proteins are peptides. Biology 112, peptides are broken down into amino acids. Only if you had known 112 was this important, right? You would actually pay attention. Yeah. Yes. Partly. Mainly the HCl, but this makes it more so. So proteins are broken down into amino acids. Name another enzyme in your stomach. That's not an enzyme. Was it? Gastric lipase. All right, I like that name because I know what I'm talking about. So ACE means enzyme. Where's it made? The stomach. And what's it break down? Fats, just like lingual lipase. So I have lipase made by my stomach. Lipid into what? Fatty acids. So the trick is, once you learn the enzyme in one place, it's going to break down the same foods everywhere. All it's changing is where it's made. My tongue makes a lipase, my stomach makes a lipase, but still a lipase. It's not changing what it's doing. One answer goes a long way. That's good.
In terms of lab, are we gonna do like for the funded gland is what it says? Are we for that? We don't have to. Okay.
That'd be fine. Or you can kind of take a cop out, just say gastric cells. Fundix is just a part of the stomach, so that's fine. Okay, on those. We're down here with the stomach. Now we get the fun one, the small intestine. There's only 80 of them, it seems like. All right, so we're gonna do small intestine. Need lots of room. So small intestine. Okay, here's how we're going to recommend you learn these. I would recommend you learn them by the substrates they break down, the food. That way it makes the list a little more manageable. But your call. So I'm going to do a listing here of all the enzymes that break down carbs, carbohydrates. I'm going to do proteins, fats on down the list. So if I know what category they're in, That helps me learn. So we're going to do some of the carbohydrate enzymes in my small intestine. See if you can tell me. The pen that might work. Let's do this. I'm going to do this as a little mini quiz here. See if you can figure out everything about this enzyme after I write it up here. Okay, on your test next week, you'd say, okay, what's the enzyme name? Amylase. Where's it made? My pancreas. What's it break down? What's the subpart product? Sugars. Very good. Amylase, same as your mouth. The only difference is this is made in my pancreas instead of in my tongue. So one of the enzymes is amylase. This is made in my pancreas. That's pancreatic amylase. Its substrate product will be the same as the other amylase, starch into sugar. Make sense? Just still amylase. All right, let's do a few more carbohydrate ones. Let's do lactase. Okay, I left the word off. That's okay. Can we figure out what lactase digests? Milk, lactose, milk sugar. So this one takes lactose, makes it into glucose, eventually. Okay, then we have another one I'm going to put up. Maltase. Anyone tell me what maltase digests? Maltose, aka beer, into glucose. Malt sugar. Give me a second, I'll get that.
Oh, okay.
Last one of this grouping we're going to do is sucrase. Sucrase digests sucrose, table sugar, into glucose. So all of these enzymes are breaking down something into sugar. Okay? Amylase, lactase, maltase, sucrase. Pancreatic amylase made by pancreas. These three are made someplace they didn't mention. It's the same place. These are made in the brush border. These are called brush border enzymes. You're looking at me like I'm crazy. Where's the brush border? Does anyone know what the brush border is?
Really?
Yes, indeed. Let me show you that picture again. To some drunk woman, looking at the fingers of your intestines, hey, that looks like a brushy border. That's brush border. It means your small intestine. The brush border is synonymous with a small intestine layer. That looks brushy. Again, you gotta be drunk woman to really appreciate the humor, right? But a brush border enzyme in anatomy class means small intestine. So if you're reading brush border means small intestine is the source. They just don't list brush border lactate. Right? Just leave it off. Yeah.
So if we say small intestine, that's fine.
That's fine. As long as you realize it's the lining of the small intestine. Yeah. So the book talks about brush border enzymes. That's what they mean is the small intestine producing these enzymes. Right? So you have a pancreatic enzyme for carbs. You have brush border enzymes for carbs. Sense? All right, that's the carb list. Let's keep going. Only a bunch more. Let's do that over here. Let's do a protein list for the small intestine. Someone name for me a protein digesting enzyme. Trypsin, I heard. Chymotrypsin. There's peptidase. There's carboxypeptidase. There's dipeptidase. Here you are. Alright, so we have trypsin, chymotrypsin, peptidase, carboxypeptidase, and dipeptidase. There's actually more, but for today that's pretty cool.
For today?
For today, that's fine.
What's tomorrow?
For tomorrow too.
That's carboxypeptidase.
Carboxypeptidase. I'll show you a picture in a second.
So this is depeptidase?
DI. All right. So they're all breaking down protein. So let's make the easy one. No matter what protein it is, what is going to be the product of a protein digestion? So no matter which one it is, they're all going to make amino acids from protein. So it's the same substrate, basically the same product. The difference is where they're made. Some of these are from the pancreas, some are not. So trypsin is from the pancreas. They don't call it pancreatic trypsin, but that's where it's from. It's from the pancreas. I would not be opposed if you said that. Pancreas is also from chymotrypsin. Also is from the pancreas. Okay, so those two are pancreatic enzymes. You don't say pancreatic trypsin. You just don't. Right? Make sense? All right. So, carboxypeptidase is also pancreatic. Right? Where do you think the other ones are coming from? Just take a guess. The brush border. So, there's a brush border peptidase, there's a brush border dipeptidase, and it turns out there's a brush border carboxypeptidase. So you can end up sometimes with the same enzyme coming from more than one place. That's cool. And sometimes you have enzymes in one place or the other.
Is BB okay?
BB is fine. Yeah, I buy that. So in terms of proteins, is you have a lot of different enzymes. They're always in two places, either the brush border or the pancreas, or sometimes both. Oxypeptidase.
So that have to be on the border?
That means
I just noticed that the thing that much more is have to happen today.
right. So yeah, so I don't know why they named it that way.
Is that
It might be. I don't know if that's true. So all these enzymes will break down proteins, all amino acids, two locations. The only difference is the location.
So we don't need to know like specific protein, like we need to know specific sugars.
Protein is protein. Yes.
Is there an answer? Or are you trying to say it's an ACE or a
Question. I'm trying to wait. There's no E in it, is there? I mean, pancrease, right? That's an enzyme that destroys your pancreas. Right? Pancrease. Right. Okay on those. Hey, name something else you eat besides carbs and protein. Fats. All right. Let's do our lipids or fats. I claim there's only one.
Thank God.
Pancreatic lipase. What's it breaking down? The fats into what? Fatty acids, same as every other lipase you've had. From the name, can you tell me where the source is? Made by pancreas. So it's the same lipase as you've read about before. And this one is made by pancreas to take fatty acids production from fats. Right? So we have a lipase made by pancreas. But wait, there's another food you can eat. And there's our nucleic acids. Remind me from 112 what a nucleic acid is. Like DNA and that kind of stuff, right? When you eat somebody, you eat their DNA. How do you break those down? All right. The enzymes are called nuclease. Where do you think they get nuclease from?
Wait, what's happening here? I'm confused with the color scheme.
It's just colors I picked.
No,
It has no
okay,
meaning.
but the nucleic acids, is that totally different? Still under lipids, but totally different. Okay.
Nuclease from nucleic acid or nucleus. Where do you think that's made? Pancreas. Another category of food, yes. So you're going to eat carbs, you're going to eat proteins, you're going to eat lipids, and nucleic acid. Macromolecules you learned in 112, what? Third week of class?
How do you know that?
Did I teach it?
Oh.
On my syllabus. I know exactly what I did. Your report reads, yes. Good question. No. What is the monomer nucleotides? So your nucleic acids become nucleotides. You break them down. 112, yes.
So, is nucleus fine, or do we have to know both ribose and deoxyribonucleic?
No, fine, nucleus is fine. I'm not going to separate DNA and RNA. They're both a nucleus. But there's one for DNA, there's one for RNA. There's a phosphatase where there's a bond. The nucleus is fine. So, on your small intestine, what I would recommend you do is you can just plug and chug and list them all, but I would try to keep them in categories. Which ones eat my carbs? Which ones eat my proteins? Blah, blah, blah. It seems to make it easier to sort them through. Because what you want to do at some point in your college career, you'll do something like this. What this person did was they listed foods, and they kind of went down and listed every enzyme for each food they would eat. So for example, my stomach makes pepsin to make proteins, my pancreas does these, my small intestine does these, on and on. So a good way to study is if you can go through line by line and do which organ does what, or which enzymes made where, that kind of concept. Okay? So I can ask you, I give you a food and say what enzymes, I give you the enzyme, where they made, this is the substrate, what organs, I can do all sorts of million ways that test you on this. Okay? But the small intestine is the largest group of enzymes. Yes?
Lab thing, or is this going to be a lecture?
Well, the lab one you use is lipase, so there's no need to do for lab.
Okay.
The lecture you have to do all this.
Alright.
Because there's no.
It's amiable. And PCC says. So another way to do it, this is a la Mr. Google. This person did sort of the same thing by grouping. So here's my carbs, proteins, fats. And they listed where they are, small intestine, whatever, kind of that. So what you want to do is get a handle of all the different ways you can sort this out. My type, my organ, my source, my product. There's a lot of ways I can get you on all this information. By next week, right? On free training now. Right?
We're still going on the large intestine.
We're not done yet, we're still large intestine, aren't we? Right. Okay. Large intestine enzymes. This should be easy. Go back to your chart. Tell me about the chemical digestion of large intestine. The answer was what?
No.
No. Therefore, how many enzymes does it have? None. It doesn't digest. Therefore, there's no enzymes because you don't digest.
Good God.
When you think about it, the small intestine digests the most, so it has the most enzymes. Large intestine doesn't digest, it has no enzyme.
Small intestine took care of all that.
Small intestine should have done all the work, right? Like your esophagus, no enzyme. Make sense?
What about like tea?
That's part of the physical digestion. They're not enzymes.
Oh, so what about the others?
What about the others? Let's do some others.
Oh.
The video mentions some others. That's kind of lost, doesn't it? The others. Right.
Sorry, dude.
All right.
You have to know all the things.
So in stomach, there was something the video mentioned is added to the stomach besides the enzyme. What else is in your stomach? Hydrochloric acid. Okay, so two questions for you. One, why would your body put an acid in your stomach?
Oh wait, so you kill stuff.
So I kill stuff as a barrier learned last term, right? Body acids are a barrier. And also acids do what to food? Break it down. So I'm making acids as a barrier to kill the E. coli in the burger. Also that assists my body to break down the protein. So someone who cooks, you can add acid to proteins, and adding vinegar to your meat softens it, right? It's the concept. You're adding acid to the protein, break it down. So that's helping. It's not the enzyme. Just a helper. These are the enzymes. That's just assisting them, right? Small intestine had two things in it the video mentioned. I'm going to do one of them. Bile was one of the substances put into your small intestine. We're going to spend a minute talking about bile. Because thou shalt understand bile, thou shalt. Where's bile made? Not in my gallbladder. My liver is stored in the gallbladder. Got a lot of gall. Okay. What's it for in this context? Why do you need bile? Emulsification in lab. It emulsifies fats. So we're going to take a minute and figure out that word. Because bile is not an enzyme. It does not digest fat. If you put digest fat on your test, I'm going to beat you to death. It is not an enzyme. Not an enzyme. What's the enzyme for fat?
Lipase.
Lipase. This is not lipase. It emulsifies fats, which means in English makes fats smaller in size.
Is that for more surface area?
As the surface area comes up. Let me show you a picture of some bile emulsifying some fat to get the concept here. How do I do that? Showing. I took the liver off in this picture, so the liver would have been above all this. But my face is like this. So here's my gallbladder where I'm storing the bile. It was colored green. And then it's going to drip down this tube and end up in my small intestine. So it's used in my small intestine. Made my liver gallbladder, it helps out in my small intestine. So it's a helper, it's an accessory. Let me show you what it looks like when it's doing its job. Which I put it on the spot because I'm foolish. Here it is. Here's Mr. Black. Little blob over here. In fact, in 112 you learned it in my class, the structure bomb. Remember polar, non-polar? Well, I feel like it was a 5-credit class. Okay. So remember that things that are polar or non-polar together can grab onto fat and grab onto water. And therefore they would stick to it like this. So here's a bunch of blob or cheese right there. And here the bile now is sticking to the fat part with its non-polar region. And the polar part, the charged hydrophilic part, sticks out. Okay? You use this every day in your home. Name something in your home that has a polar, non-polar, and emphatic.
Soap.
Soap. Congratulations, bile of soap.
So is that soap?
You make soap in your liver. Why use soap on your hands? To do what?
Get rid of the dirt.
Get the grease off, right? Why does your liver make soap? To
Get the grease off.
get the grease, break down the fat. Yes.
Okay, 2 questions.
Sure.
So if somebody,
Yes.
and so now they don't have the gallbladder.
Yes.
And so do they just, like, when they have a bowel movement, is it just a bunch of fat cells?
Yes.
in there? Okay, so second question, does the liver still make bile?
Yes.
And then where does it go?
Just down. They don't take out the bile duct. They'll just drip down the bile duct.
Okay.
Remember that rat dissection you did in 231? Rats don't have a gallbladder. So whatever bile they use is just that little bit of green that's in between the liver and the small intestine. You just get like 1 squirt. Gallbladder is like a soap dispenser. You have a lot more soap in storage. But if you lose your gallbladder, you have no storage. So you get 1 little bit of bile. That's it. So if you eat a bunch of greasy French fries, you used up your bile in the first fry, the fries just keep on going through. So have you ever heard about the dye drug Ally? Do you know how Ally worked?
How does it
Stops
work?
you from making bile.
Okay.
You poop your pants all the time because you can't retain the fat, so you just squirt out the fat all day long. Your greasy stool.
So does that affect your other dietary?
Yes. Yeah. That's all sorts of nasty things. Get vitamin C.
What was the last thing you just said?
Get vitamin deficient. Yes.
How do you get your
You know. You take a vitamin or you get malnourished. That's why Olestra didn't catch on. Remember Olestra, the Olean, the fat-free potato chip, which is a silly idea anyway, right? They had to put a label on it. May cause vitamin deficiency. If they require that, because if I'm pooping my pants all the time and all my fat is not getting broken down, I can't absorb my fat. Well, what's in my fat are all the vitamins I need, so I become vitamin A deficient.
So,
Right. So.
the more surface area.
Yeah. So in this case, it's making the big blob of fat smaller, so greater surface area for the lipase to find the fat and break it down. So the goal of emulsify the fat is to make it smaller for the lipase to be more efficient. In the lab exercise you did this morning, right, you added bile. Made the lipase do better because you're breaking the fat down with soap first, so the enzyme can find it second. And so you can break down fat without bile, it just takes more work. The analogy is cleaning your dishes with no soap. You have to do a lot more work to do it than if you have soap. Right? That's bile, made in my liver, stored in my gallbladder to emulsify my fats. Yes?
Say it goes from the gallbladder right into the small intestine.
Yes.
But I heard you say earlier that you can
Yes, you can. Ah, okay, let's do some vomit. All right. This works. All right. Prepare for any questions. So this is my small intestine, and this green tube is where the bile comes in. Common bile is. There's my gallbladder. Okay. So it's down way down here, you know, first third of the small intestine. Let's say you get a raging hot stomach infection. Okay, you're gonna throw up and throw up and throw up and throw up. So what the stomach does is, flip this page. So the way the emetic center works, which is your throw up center, medulla, it tells your stomach to basically push backwards. So it squeezes here and shoves the food back up. It's peristalsis in reverse. If you do that long enough, and there's nothing else in there, the brain thinks, well, maybe I didn't squeeze far enough down to get the infection. So then tells your small intestine to squeeze and reverse. So it takes the upper part of the small intestine, which is now full of bile, because there's just soap in there, and squeezes that up all the way up. So when you're throwing up bile, it means your stomach is empty, and your medulla is telling your small intestine to join the crowd and throw up too.
Is that Yellowstone?
It's kind of like yellowy, green, strange to describe. But that means you empty the stomach, and now you're throwing up from the small intestine. Why? Right. Yes.
Can it be impossible? Can it be impossible for it to throw up?
There are people who find it difficult to throw up.
Like mechanically impossible?
Usually the brain thing. The brain is not ordering. The brain, the emetic center, the medulla says work in reverse. So if that kicks in, you should throw up regardless. If that doesn't kick in, you will never throw up.
Can you not know that?
So,
Lucky.
so there are people who just, their stomach, their brain's a little more, there's some people whose brains will throw up at anything, right? You look at a top and you throw up. Other people, their brains can get poorly affected and never throw up. It's just, yes.
So, I don't know how this relates to digestion, but what about, like, if you see someone throw up and then you throw up?
Yes.
That's just.
That's mirror neurons.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's it.
I forgot about that.
Because evolutionarily, the brain realizes if you ate the same time and you're throwing up, you guys throw up before I can say Hey, you okay in a while? We're not done yet. Let's go back to our others. What else is in my small intestine that I would want to know about? Glad you asked. I want you to look at the pH column. What was the pH of your stomach? 2, high acidity. What's the pH of your small intestine? How did you do that? How did you go from a 2 to an 8 in 1 inch?
Bicarb.
Oh, what is it?
Bicarb.
Bicarbonate buffer. Ah. Remember Biology 112? Let's talk about buffers. What was the job of buffers in Biology 112? This I think I'll give the 4th quiz. Modulate pH or regulate pH. Remember buffers will hold your pH steady. So the bicarbonate buffer is a pH regulator. So your stomach at 2 doesn't make your intestine 2. What's wrong with an intestine at 2? What's so bad with the pH at 2 in your intestines? Remember that lady?
It's really thin.
Really thin. What do you think acid does to really thin lady?
It's still thin.
Melt, melts all those hairs and all that little villi. So I don't want my intestines to melt, so I have to make a buffer so they stay above acidity. So where do you think that buffer comes from?
Those glands? Do I know?
The pancreatic buffer. So where does it come from? The pancreas makes a buffer. In addition to enzymes, the pancreas makes a buffer for your small intestine. Sodium bicarbonate. So your Liver makes the bile, so the pancreas makes the enzymes and the bile to keep the small intestine happy.
What made the HCl?
It's made by the stomach itself, the stomach glands, the chief cells. So these are, again, these are not enzymes. The buffer's not an enzyme, bile, these are not enzymes. They're things that help the enzymes stay the pH they should stay, be happy, so. Make sense? Alright. Thou shalt know this chart, thou shalt. Yes. No, we'll just do it.
Where's the
That's another, that's what makes the bicarbonate.
You okay with that? Hey, turn the page then. We're going to add more detail.
Just stop.
We're in page 13. I'm going to walk you through this case study with more details that we have to know about. This is page 13. The next page is happening. So we got this guy who has heartburn after a meal, belches, slurs. Okay, number one, what do you call when people have a lot of heartburn after a meal? I have a vote for GERD. Acid reflux, GERD, all those are true. Alright, so let's give it some names. Alright, so you can say acid reflux. Okay, help me out. What does reflux mean? Back up. So the acid from my stomach is coming back up. That's not expensive enough. The doctors came up with GERD. Gastroesophageal reflux disease for $350. Alright, we used to call it heartburn for nothing. But those are the same thing. The acid is coming up my throat from my stomach. So acid up from stomach. Let's review again. What's the pH of your stomach acid again? 2. What's the pH of your esophagus and mouth? 7-ish. So a 2 and a 7 is a bad day, right? Taking acid to a neutral environment, those cells are not happy with you. So I'm refluxing or GERDing, whatever word you want. So now we got to figure out number 2. Well, why doesn't acid normally come up my throat? What's the answer? Sphincters!
Say that again.
Sphincters! Okay. Sphincters, no.
Sphincters?
Sphincters. Because I'm already one, right? And we're going to learn all the sphincters of the digestive system. Thou shalt know them in order, thou shalt. So let's do our sphincters. Okay. Okay. Tell me what a sphincter is.
Prevents backflow.
That's what it does. What is it? Door. Door. It's a valve.
Isn't it like a circular muscle?
Mm-hmm. Like your purse strings. It's a valve that's a circular valve. But in real life, it acts the same as a valve. So from your heart, what was the job of a valve? Prevent backflow. The job of a sphincter is to prevent backflow. You really don't want your poop coming back up. Right? So the sphincter's job is to keep the food going in the right order. Mouth to esophagus, esophagus to stomach, stomach like that. Remember your heart dynamics. That was the concept of the heart valves, right? Keep the flow going. So we're going to learn our sphincters whose job it is to prevent backflow. So there are many, many, many. But we're just learn the major ones. So the first one you have to know, spell. First one is called your upper esophageal sphincter, or upper esophageal. Also called your UPS, your upper esophageal sphincter. So can someone take a guess where your upper esophageal sphincter would be? Take a guess.
The upper portion of your esophagus.
The upper portion of your esophagus. Makes sense to me, right? Let me show you a picture of the upper esophageal here. Should be on the next slide. Here we go. Here is my upper esophageal sphincter. Those are arrows right there. Here's my esophagus, the back tube. The top of it is upper. Sphincter means the upper string. So, Here's my food in my mouth. My sphincter is closed. I go to swallow. What should my sphincter do?
Open.
It has to open or relax. Let the food by. And when the food goes by, it closes up again to keep the food from coming back up. Okay? Just like your heart valves. Instead of flapping the valve, they open close. Same concept though. So I have an upper esophageal sphincter at basically the back of my mouth, top of the esophagus, whatever words you want to use there. So we'll say top of esophagus. Top of esophagus.
So it's kind of near your epiglottis.
Yeah, right behind my epiglottis, basically. So if there's an upper esophageal, can you take a guess what sphincter number 2 must be?
Lower.
The lower esophageal. All right. So here's the problem with this one. There's about 5 different names all for the same thing. So lower esophageal is fine. Your doctor will bill you for your LES, lower esophageal sphincter. I learned in the dark ages this is your cardiac sphincter because it's near your heart. You can also say gastro esophageal sphincter. Gastro means what? Stomach, esophagus. These are all fine. Pick one. All the same one. I know this.
Bless you.
Where do you think your lower esophageal sphincter is, though? Between your what?
Stomach and esophagus.
Between your stomach and esophagus. Your esophagus. Okay, what word is that? What language is that running there? I don't know what that is. Esophagus. Stomach. So remember your heart, right? The valves are between the chambers. Same kind of concept, right? They're between the organs. So between my esophagus and my stomach would be my lower esophageal sphincter. Let me show you on this picture. My lower esophageal. So here's my esophagus with the food. Here's my stomach. That there. They call it gastroesophageal. That's fine. You can say lower esophageal, cardiac, pick a word. I'm okay with it. So right now it's closed. So let the food in. What must it do? It has to open, and then let the food in, and then it'll close back down. Actually, we give it a sound. It's really, here's a worthless game at a party, right? Take a stethoscope and put it on your stomach. Right here. Swallow water. You'll see the water splash against the closed sphincter. You let the sphincter open and close. Why is that all right? You know, it's such a bore. My sphincters are going. It should make sense. That's why gastroesophageal, lower esophageal, LES. Makes sense?
Mine's broken.
Hey, where's the next one going to be following this logic?
Pylorus.
Pyloric sphincters on this picture here. They call it a valve. You go to sphincter. They're basically the same. There's a subtle distinction. So where is that? Describe that to me. Where's that at?
Right below.
Right, so the pyloric sphincter, pyloric valve, you'll hear both. It's the same place. That's between my stomach and my small intestine. So the gate between stomach and small intestine is my pyloric sphincter, pyloric valve. You'll hear both. So far, so good? So on this picture, closed, keeping the food in the stomach. Then, of course, it has to open all the food out of the stomach into my intestine. Right, so again, it's a gatekeeper. So good? Okay. Where do you suspect the next valve would be?
Small intestine, large intestine.
Very good. Between my small and large intestines. Let me get the picture up here. Put the wrong spot. There it is. So get your bearings on this picture. They took out the small intestine. The small intestine is a big empty land in the middle. Right? It pops out right here. It's my ileum, the last part of my small intestine. And right there, there's a little flap, aka valve. What's that valve called? It's the ileocecal valve. You can call it a sphincter. I mean, it's not precisely a sphincter, but it works. We're going to call that my ileocecal sphincter / valve. Over here. Number what, 4? Number 4.
Did you say we can call it a sphincter?
Yeah, they always call it a valve because it's flaps, not a round one, but if you call it a sphincter, I wouldn't care. And I put a hyphen in there to help you remember where it is. Your ileum is your small intestine. The cecum is your large intestine. So ileocecal tells me it's between small intestine, large intestine. The gate between the two intestines, or my small intestine, my colon. Yes?
So out of curiosity, is the entire colon called the cecum, or just that?
No, just the beginning part. So formally, the cecum is just the beginning pouch here. And below the below the valve, the count. Nothing. Well, it does something. The appendix is a combination lymph node and bacterial refuge. So when you get a raging hot intestinal infection, bacteria that you have crawl in there to survive, let the bad guys float on by, and they recolonize your gut when bad things are past.
What if you get it?
And they have no place to go, so you have a hard time recolonizing your gut because they have no sanctuary.
Doesn't it have like some evolutionary purpose, like
Yes.
previously you think it did?
Right, so normally in vegetarian animals like ruminants and that stuff, it's really huge. They need more bacteria, so their appendix is larger. In carnivores, it's always smaller because we eat more meat, there's less need for stuff that breaks down in plants. But everyone has one. Okay, do this well? Hey, there's a couple more sphincters on here. Anyone find it for me? There are two. Only one is labeled.
Anal.
The anal sphincter. That's Mr. Christie. No, I'm not. All right. So, there are two. They show the external anal sphincter. If there's an external anal sphincter, what must be the other one? Internal.
And which one?
Well, they're both in the same place. Both right here. The question is, why do you need two? And the others have two. Why do you need two in your anus?
You can control it.
It's definitely the one.
That's right. Okay, so the internal one is involuntary. You have no control over that one. The external one, voluntary. So again, why would you need two? Well, the internal one is a pressure relief valve. If there's too much there, it opens regardless of what you're thinking. So you can't hold it forever. But when you become potty trained, it's nice not being able to poop on your mom and dad. So you have to learn to control one, the other one fight the two. Right? So you feel the urge to go, you have to convince your external to be stronger than your internal. And that's what your brain is learning to control, is this one's stronger than this one. If I scare you really bad, your brain will forget to tell the voluntary one to hold, so you'll poop your pants when you're scared, because you're on fire anyway. That's the logic of that system, right? Where you pass out, you poop your pants.
So are there sphincters in the ureter too?
No, in the urethra, in the P1.
What did I say? Ureter?
Urethra.
Yeah, that one.
It has the same thing, there's two. So when you become potty trained, you learn to control the external one. The internal ones are so you can never hold your bladder enough to perch, you have to pee your pants eventually. Okay, so both of your external tubings have two valves, two sphincters, the same location. Yes?
Is that true like just for primates or do other?
All mammals in order have that.
To control.
Yeah, that's why your puppies don't poop on their mom at some point, they poop in your yard, right? That's the concept.
Birds, I don't think have one because birds can't control their waste.
They can, they go drop on your head.
Yeah,
I don't think they can.
No, they can.
they
can. Yeah. I'm not sure about other animals, I was just below primates or mammals, but I don't think roundworms can. But okay, sphincters. So these are the sphincters controlling the flow of the device. Let's go back to our case study, which is why we're here. Question number 2. What should normally prevent gastric reflux in the esophagus? So which sphincter is the answer to prevent reflux? The lower esophageal, the one that keeps my stomach out of my throat. So the specific sphincter would be your lower esophageal, or you can say cardiac, or pick a word, right? Any of these are fine. But the lower esophageal is what should be closing and keeping the stuff in my stomach coming up. Your lower esophageal. All right. Let's figure out number 3. Why is the reflux worse after a meal?
You were just 8. Your stomach's full.
Your stomach is full. What's it full of? Acid and chyme. So if I fill up my stomach more, let me show you a picture of this. My pictures because we have that. Here's my stomach. Right? Let's say you eat a huge meal. Right? You fill it all the way to the brim. Right there with chyme and acid. What does the stomach do to digest food? What does it do?
It garchers.
It growls and churns. So you start sloshing acid around. It's going to hit this valve more often. The valve is leaking. Where's the next stop after the valve? Up your throat. So the fuller my stomach, the more pressure on that valve, the more fluid I have to retain. It's like a valve balloon, right? Same concept. So as I put more pressure on it, it's going to cause more reflux. I used to call this business with client disease, right? So you go out to a big luncheon with your clients, you always overeat, and then pretty soon you get acid reflux because you stretch your stomach, acid starts going up your throat, right? If you eat a little bit, you get less of that.
You can control it with diet then?
Yeah, or less eating. So. Okay, so let's figure out number 4. If you measured the pH of your esophagus, what would prove gastric reflux?
Lower.
Low pH or more acidic, right? Your stomach should be 2. Your esophagus is about a 7. Start throwing 2s into a 7, it starts dropping the number down. Right? Your doctor will charge you to put a pH meter down your throat and measure that pH. That proves the acid's coming up. Your throat should be neutral-ish. Yeah, it'd be lower pH. pH will go down. Make sense? Okay, number 5 and 6. This is a review from last term. So I'm going to let you do it for 5 minutes and struggle and hate me. You're going to do number 5, would you recommend a cholinergic agonist or adrenergic agonist? And for 6, would you take an H2 antagonist? When you do your team 5 minutes,
I don't know how to eat.
Agonist acts the same as antagonist is a blocker. We'll talk about it in just a second. So do you want more or less?
I don't know. That's the only thing I ever tried.
You have acetylcholine receptors on your parasympathetic and sympathetic. Isn't that just synthetic? So it would be choline. Do that one. I'm gonna say that.
Thank you for proving that. Get it now.
You want to speed it up, you're really nice to be like, I don't know, so
Okay, let's go over your pain now. From last term, someone remind me what cholinergic dealt with. What were we dealing with cholinergic? Acetylcholine. And that's the parasympathetic system, right? Which you remember is rest and digest. Right? Because that's cholinergic receptors, the muscarinic, nicotinic, are all cholinergic acetylcholine receptors. Ring a bell? Okay. Adrenergic was dealing with norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is adrenaline. I was dealing with the sympathetic response, and that's your fight or flight, right? So the question then is, if I have too much acid in my stomach, And I want to, it says agonize, which means the same as. Do I want more resting and digesting? Or I want more fighting or flighting?
That's rest digesting.
So let's review. If I do more rest than digest, I'm going to have more stomach activity, more digestion, more acid, which would be bad.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try turning on my adrenergic system that turns off my stomach.
But why would all your acid just be stuck in your stomach then? Wouldn't you?
Well, hopefully you take it before you eat the meal,
Oh.
right? So you don't have the acid. To prove I'm not making this up,
Well, and you're in sympathetic state, wouldn't that LES be even more relaxed?
sympathetic actually tightens. That's why you can't swallow when you're nervous. I know. So here's a picture that you don't actually have to know physically. Let's review what this is showing. Up at the top, stomach lumen from last week. What was the lumen?
Center.
That's the center. That's what the food is. Here's the food. This is my stomach lining here. And over here, here's the H's, the acid that I'm pouring into my stomach. There's an enzyme, 112, that does that. What tells that enzyme to turn on is down here. It's the indirect pathway, kinase pathway. Look down here, ooh, receptors. I know those. And look, one of them is acetylcholine. So acetylcholine would turn on more acid in my stomach, which I don't want if I have reflux. I don't want to agonize my choline, I want to turn it off. I turn on my sympathetic response, which reduces my choline. Does that make sense? So you would want to call an adrenergic agonist. I would turn on your fight or flight and turn off your resting and digesting. Now for the second question, does anyone see anything on here? The second question. Histamine. Magnesium 232 histamine did what to your body?
Inflammation.
Inflammation also causes all your cells to leak more. It turns out the same in acidity. So histamine binds, I get more and more acids leaking out of me. Is that good or bad when you have reflux? It's bad, so I want to stop histamine. So Tagament does that. Tagament's an H2 antagonist that blocks your histamine so your stomach doesn't get the message to make H.
So they should take a histamine antagonist?
Yes, you should. So I would recommend, on question 5, I'm going to take a fight or flight drug to make my stomach turn off. I would block the inflammation so I don't get acid production. So you would take adrenergic and a histamine blocker, H2 antagonist.
What was the relationship, I'm sorry, between the inflammation or the histamine and
Causes all your cells to leak more, including the parietal cells, the acid. H2 is a binder. Think about the body, if you're getting infected, one way you can stop is to make more acid to kill whatever's coming in. So you tend to leak acid in your stomach. Yes. By the way, I'm never going to ask you 5 and 6 on a test or quiz. That was last term. Okay, so you can thank me later. But number 7 is fair game this term. So let's pretend this is your patient, future healthcare professionals. What should you eat or not eat if you have GERD? Less acidic meals, because acid's coming up. What else? How about portion size? Smaller portions, because that's the problem. How about lots of coffee? No. That's acidic, right? Irritates your stomach. Right?
Spicy foods.
Probably not spicy, no nuclear tie. Anything that would irritate or make the stomach make more acid. So high protein would be bad, makes more acid production. What do you tell your patients to eat if they have GERD? Yeah, brat diet. What's brat stand for?
Rice.
Right. So basically called the bland diet, right?
What do they stand for again? Sorry. Oh.
Right. So you're eating kind of oatmeal, and you're eating mashed potatoes, you're eating toast. That's it. All white and bland, like me. Okay, so nothing spicy, nothing acidic. Everything is a really starch-heavy kind of meal. Because I don't want anything that's going to make my stomach turn on more acid like a high-protein diet. So steak and eggs is definitely out. Because pure protein, you get lots of acid, it becomes really acidic, and your GERD gets worse.
Super random. How come people with hiatal hernias have more of a more susceptible to having GERD?
No.
Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah.
One hypothesis is that the esophagus is just more sensitive anyway, so whatever acid gets up just makes it worse. One aspect of pylori is that the sphincter itself is weakening. That's usually what the sphincter is. You know, random, who knows?
What about ulcers?
Not an ulcer.
Like a stomach ulcer versus an intestinal ulcer.
Different locations, same kind of process, too much acid. So a lot of times GERD can transfer to ulcer because you have more acid building up. You get the same similar kind of effect. But this one's simply the acid. You okay on the sphincters of the body? Thou shalt know. Thou shalt. Yeah. Okay, flip the page over. Speaking of ulcers.
Give me one.
We're just going to start this one because we'll finish up the biology next week. We're just going to start on this piece. So we have a duodenal ulcer. First of all, let's figure out what an ulcer is. What was an ulcer? It's a hole in your GI tract. So an ulcer is a hole. So now we got to figure out the difference between a duodenal ulcer and a peptic. This is the easy one. Peptic would mean where? Stomach hole. So there's a hole in your stomach. A duodenum is from your where? Small intestine. So the only difference is where the hole is. Duodenal ulcers are holes in your small intestine lining. Peptic are stomach. And what's making that hole?
Acid.
Usually it's high acidity, coupled with bacteria. So you burn a hole in your mucus, and bacteria move in and start to chew on it, and you get a bigger hole, and vice versa. It's like cavity intestines, basically. Okay. So you're getting holes in the line. What's so bad about a hole in the line? What's wrong with holes in your intestines? Let's find out. Let's look at our intestines one more time. Right here. Remember these? So here's my duodenum. Here's my small intestine. Over there. This is a nice thin layer, right? If I burn a hole through that, that means whatever's in my intestine, like bacteria, can then crawl in and get where? What's in here? Bloodstream, connective tissue, right? So that's a bad day when bacteria can enter your bloodstream. Right? Plus, there's no ability to just sort of regulate that. Lots of pain, bleeding, all that fun stuff. Not good. So, we have a duodenal. Here's my question. Why would there be acid in my small intestine? The stomach has my small intestine. How could there be acid in my small intestine? All right, so it could be a weak sphincter. What happens if the sphincter is leaking the acid into my small intestine? So let's review. What sphincter would explain acid from my stomach getting into my small intestine? Pyloric sphincter could be a problem. So if my pyloric sphincter is leaky, acid keeps entering my small intestine. That could cause a problem. There's another problem, and in fact, it's right over here on the board.
Your buffer's not working.
My buffer's not working for lack of buffer. The buffer's job is to stop the acidity. If I don't make enough buffer or the tubing's blocked or whatever, I still have a problem with the acidity. Coupled. So I could have a weak sphincter letting the acid in. I can have a lack of buffer to neutralize the acid that's in there. Either of those would cause a duodenal problem. That's alright. So the other chemistry we'll have to do next week when we do the hormonal regulation. So you have enough to do this week. You have that table that thou shalt know, and all the sphincters thou shalt know. Next week we'll do more chemistry. Enjoy your time. We'll do it next week.
Are you
You don't have to know that. Remember next weekend on your project, pick that out. team at least.
Was it like, is like your last name, or is it possible that we made up? Oh no, I made up.
Yeah, I would say.
I work.
Yeah, well, that I like to go ahead. Oh, yeah. I had a friend growing up that was
No one's having C-section. Yeah, the second one's a C-section. There we go. Fantastic. I don't want to have an option.
Still shocked.